Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on digital marketing. And I just want to introduce the image behind me, which was directed by Pete Ingram and Aidan Kempson.
Attention digital marketers. Level up your skills with free guides and software. Click the links below in the video description to gain access to game-changing resources for optimizing your marketing efforts. Take charge of your success. Click now and dominate the digital landscape.
And also a team to build it, including myself. So this is a lot of pre-prep work and then 3 weeks build and about 40 minutes demolition. Now, this one webinar is also part of a group of webinars on strategy. So I'll be jumping between different things that I talked about previously, or so you can refer to previous webinars, because digital marketing on itself just doesn't sit by itself. It's part of a whole cluster of strategy and content and that sort of thing. So the whole basics of digital marketing is to get your message in front of people. So that's the thing that we'll be exploring today, is simply getting your message in front of people using digital formats. Now, before I go into any more detail on that, it's really important, strategy. Digital marketing can be an endless cycle of burning resources and time, all that sort of stuff. So you're really going to be very strategic with the time that you're spending on this and the approaches that you're doing. So we've had some previous webinars on strategy, so I recommend you give them a quick look. The videos are posted to YouTube. And then I'm also going to go through something that I went through with earlier webinars. Let me just share screen through this again. So the idea is to get people to move along the journey. And then we've also got the same diagram that's in another format. So all the things on the outside, this is what we'd call marketing. So in this diagram, we've got a mix of digital marketing, such as social media, email, and then we've also got offline marketing, such as letterboxing, etc. And in this diagram, the marketing's on the left. So we're going to be looking at the left side of this diagram today. However, it doesn't sit on its own. There's no point getting the attention of someone if you're not then going to go move them through to the next level. Here we go. So I'm just talking off the run sheet, which was emailed to you. If you've lost that, if you just go to actionskills.co, webinars, digital marketing, you'll get to this run sheet. So you can also refer that in the future, which will help support the videos. And it's also got the links to the references that I'm working on. Okay, so the first step in the user journey, and then we want to get them in the database, then we want to communicate with them. The other thing with digital marketing that's really important concept to understand is that you need to hit people with multiple touch points. So in that context, they'll see you multiple times. There's different numbers being thrown around. The 8 is a common one, which used to be more like 4. So in that context, they may see a blog post, they may see a post on Facebook, they may see someone talking about it, and then it takes that before they will actually take action. So it's important to think about digital marketing as it's just not one thing that you're putting out to try to connect to people. It's always it's more of a system or a framework that you're going to build. So you're going to be building a marketing publishing engine, which you're constantly feeding, which will then sometimes will give you short-term results, but a lot of this is also building long-term results. Okay. Now, the other key point about marketing to understand is that content is king, is a saying. So I like to say content is king and queen, but it's also the princess. I mean, content is everything. So for example, if you're trying to build your Instagram profile, if you don't have Instagram photos, if you don't have good content, you're not going to be building your Instagram. Same thing with your emails, your website needs content. And we'll be doing a content webinar soon, where we'll be doing one on actual content called Kings and Queens of Content, where we run through different approaches. And then we've got one that's just about images and focusing on imagery within digital marketing, because images are so key. The other really important point to think about with digital marketing is that you must learn about your community. They're the people that you're trying to talk to. And we've in previous webinars, we've talked about how to target your audience and to define them and start looking at your audience. And it's really important to see what mediums they're using, how they're using it, what's the culture. So if you want to actually connect with them where they are in a digital context, you need to actually start learning about where they are, what that means, what are the social norms about marketing, those sort of things. So that's the introduction. Okay, so there's a few approaches to digital marketing, and pretty much the lion's share of digital marketing is search and social media. And I'll go through a lot of other ways because, again, depending on your target audience and how you're trying to connect with them. So search is search engines. Google is the most common, but there are quite a lot of other search engines. And this is the most effective form of marketing. This is because someone is searching for this. So it might be donate Gippsland forests. They search that in. So at that point, they are ready to donate to a campaign on Gippsland's forests. So if you can get that link to your Gippsland forest campaign, then you're more likely to get a donation. The problem with that is that it's limited. There's a limited amount of people that are searching for that. So even if you get 100% of all the people that search for those terms, there's only a small amount of people that are searching for those terms. So you then also want to then invest in social media, which will create more leads, although the leads in social media are much weaker. And there's two types of search. One is organic, and what organic means in a Google, so I'll share screen. Okay, so at the top here, you can see it's got ad, and then we've got without the ad. So the ones with the ads next to it, they are what we call paid search, and the one down below here is what's called organic. So this page here is what Google thinks is the most important page for you. So Google and other search engines are optimized for you. So in theory, it's the best web page on the planet. However, it's the best web page on the internet for you. Whereas these ads are also optimized for you, but it's also just targeting people paying to be there. Now, social media also has organic and paid concept. It's a lot less easier to show visually, but the idea is that posts which people want to see. So generally, Facebook will want pictures of you personally. So if you're sharing your emotions, photos of your children, this more family, wholesome, emotional stuff is what shares the most. So if you're posting something like that, then Facebook will actually push that out a lot more. Versus if you're doing just more like, marketing, digital marketing webinar ad, that's going to go less through social media. So the organics are also quite corrupted because they have a lot of algorithms which are working out this, what is relevant, what will share, what people react to. So in that context, when you're working in social media, it's always a learning process, like putting posts out and then seeing what will share and what is going around. And then obviously you can pay for your social media ads. Now, it's really important if you're paying for your social media ads is to look at what medium you're sending to. And again, your target audience, all those sort of things. So for example, if you pay for an ad in Facebook, it will want to automatically take that ad and put it into Instagram. That to me is just, it's not very smart because Instagram is a completely different medium and communicates a different way than what Facebook does. So you'd really want to optimize a page ad for Facebook and then push that through Facebook, then create a custom ad for Instagram and push that through Instagram. I mean, if you're spending all this time and money, you at least want it to work through the medium. And social media also, the organic reach is also different depending on the platforms. Like Instagram is different again to, say, Pinterest, to LinkedIn, that sort of thing. Okay, so Facebook, and the reason I'm talking about Facebook a little bit more than other platforms is that Facebook is pretty much the dominant social media for everything. The majority, I think it's about 80% of the world's advertising dollars. So this is money that Murdoch used to make on selling on newspapers and TV and TV ads. This is now going to Google and Facebook, 80% of ad revenue. So Google and Facebook have actually completely shifted the advertising model. Now, the problem with that is that they're not paying for content. Someone else is. Whereas at least Murdoch and the television stations were actually paying for content. But that's a different discussion. So there's two ways of looking at Facebook. One is pages and groups. Now, I'm sure you've looked at both of those. So pages are more for a brand or an individual, which is showing, which is more of a broadcast way of looking at things. So I'm broadcasting on my Glenn Todd page or my Action Skills page. I'm broadcasting stuff about what I'm doing and what Action Skills is doing. And in that context, I'm still trying to generate conversation and discussion. With groups are more a collaborative approach where people are discussing stuff within groups. And so in that context, depending on your type of marketing, your type of content is which approach you would have. So Action Skills, we're currently just running a page, but we will set up a group sooner or later, which will be a group where people can come in and ask questions about social media marketing, all this digital stuff. So in that context, it's everybody can go in and help each other. And then the marketing that we get is just purely from like managing that and looking after that. The other thing with Facebook and social media is it's heavily targeted. You can target very specific people, their interests, their what they like. So for example, if you're running a Facebook ad, and I recommend that when Facebook asks you to boost a post, that you don't do that. You stop and actually create a Facebook ad and push that out, is that you could actually say that I want to target people who like Greenpeace Australia, who are 50, who are female, that live in Coburg. So it's very targeted in how you can target people for advertising. Now, in saying that, it's very weak leads. If you think about yourself when you're scrolling through Facebook, you don't really want to be looking at ads. So unless that ad is really good or is really relevant to you, then you're not going to look at it. So in that context, you're not, the leads that will come through social media are quite weak. So in that case, you've got to then do a very well executed content, presented well, and then a good call to action to get them back to your website to then continue that journey. Versus if you're in Google, they're already keen to go somewhere. The other thing with social media promotion is that people don't want to leave their Facebook if they're in there. So if there's an ad, unless it's really interesting, they're not going to jump out. Whereas if you go to Google, you're actually going to Google to jump to somewhere else. Okay. Any questions? It's difficult to create a amount of content needed. Okay, so there's a question about content. And now I've got a whole webinar on content, so I'm not going to answer that question because I will talk about ways to produce content in the actual content webinar. Okay, so other types of digital marketing, and this still links into social media, is influencer. Now you would have heard that as a really fancy marketing term recently, and especially with the COVID environment where a lot of influencers are no longer being able to continue their work to become influencers. So when I talk about influencers though, I talk about it in a new way of thinking and also think of it an old way of thinking. So a new way of thinking is when we think about Instagram, bloggers, newsletters, or people who have influential sites. So these are people who are writing quality content regularly, building up a following, and that following is quite connected to them. Also, when you're looking at influencers, it's also interesting to look at a concept called micro-influencers. So this is people that have a smaller audience. However, just say that you had $10,000 to spend on a influencer. You could spend that on one fancy influencer that has a massive reach, or you could say, right, well, I'm going to distribute that to $500 to 20 influencers, which are smaller, which have smaller audiences. And that can be an effective campaign way of approaching it as well, especially because the big influencers are going to be a bit more cheesy and their audience may or may not resonate with this on the constant advertising. Whereas if you've got micro influencers, they're more likely to be targeted and not advertising that much. So it can be more effective. And on a not-for-profit context, there's paid influencers, but then there's also a lot of people that may be really into your cause. So in that context, if you can start building up lists of people who may be interested in your cause, that are have building a following, so then figuring out how you can work with them to, for them to influence your campaigns. And I also will put in old school influencers, Rupert Murdoch, for example, who has owns a lot of newspaper, TV, that sort of stuff. So in that context, I would still put under digital marketing, sending a press release to the traditional media, because the traditional media these days is mostly online anyway. So if you can then get an article or a journalist to cover your story in traditional media, then that's a great form of marketing as well. And then the old-fashioned celebrity, and we're still in a celebrity culture. So this links into new school influencers, because a celebrity may have a massive Instagram following, for example, so they would fit into the new school. But some celebrities may not have any sort of social media or much social media, in which case that'd be a great opportunity for you to push out their messaging about your campaign actually on your platforms, and then use their celebrity to build. But I'm sure everyone understands celebrity, so I'll leave it at that. I love your smile. Thank you. Okay, so I've introduced by talking about how important content is, and I'll be doing 2 whole sessions just on content. But content in itself is marketing. And there's a few approaches to this, in addition to content that's fueling your website, that's fueling your social media, that's fueling your newsletters and your YouTube channel. One approach that's made very big by Red Bull is actually just paying to produce good content. So in the old days, you'd have a network or a production company that would then produce, say, an extreme sports. I saw a great one where people were jumping out of planes in those suits and they fly. So whereas in this context now, Red Bull is actually becoming that company that's producing it. So they're paying for the videographers, they're paying for the talent, they're paying for all the expenses. So they actually produced that video. And then it's branded within it, but not over the top, so that you'll probably see them drinking Red Bull here and there and the logos here and there, but it's not an ad. They're not pushing, you should drink Red Bull like in a Coca-Cola ad. It's just subtle, just enough so people know this is Red Bull content. Now, then they put that through their own channels. They may do a syndication, say with MTV or something like that, where MTV will get free content they can sell advertising off, so they'll push it. Or they can just push it through their own channels. Because it's quality content, people want to watch it. So that's an expensive approach. In saying that though, with not-for-profits, if we're creative, we can also think of some really good content that we can produce at a more realistic budget than Red Bull. User content. So this is where people produce content for you. This generally works better, obviously, for bigger campaigns, but this can also be facilitated by actually running competitions and things like that. So, for example, the Bob Brown Foundation run an event called Tarkine in Motion, which I recommend if you're creative. So basically around Easter time, they facilitate, I think, 100 artists to go to the Tarkine, and then the artists then explore creative expression around the Tarkine to show how special and beautiful it is. So that then creates an event to get awareness to the Tarkine. It also connects with the artists so that they're building the campaign that way. But more importantly, then they're building good content. And so all that content from those exhibitions are then being able to push out. In my opinion, they focus too much on offline promotion to running exhibitions and things. I'd like to see them actually putting that content much more in the fore in a digital context and actually starting to push that content. But in that example, they're organising the framework, they're organising the activist camps, they're getting people to where they're going and organising it, but it's actually the users that are producing all the content. So there is still a cost to Bob Brown Foundation, but it's a very low cost compared to the huge results they're coming back. Other ways of looking at content is content syndication. So this is where someone else is pushing out your content. So for example, if you're going to write a blog post on the stupidity of the logging industry as far as their financial, the way they operate financially, you may then write a really well-researched long piece on that subject and put it onto your website. Whereas your website gets really low traffic. Whereas you may then find a media channel, somebody who's running a very influential blog, or a mainstream news channel, or some of the newer ones like Conversation or Crikey, and say, look, I've produced this quality content. I'll give you exclusive use of this content in addition to my website. I'll put it on my website as well. So they go, great, free content. Now, if you've written quality content, they're like, I get free content to then put advertising on and then pump it through my website, and then you get to access their audience. So if they've got a large audience, that's a far larger audience than you ever would have had on your website. And of course, you would also have a link back to your website and back to your campaign. So when you think about producing written content or other forms of content for your website, think about, actually, would this be on a better platform? Was there another platform that this fits better as a primary way to push out your content? And then, of course, you still put it on your website for the main reasons that you work. Also, ebooks are becoming quite popular. And in that context, then you can use if you're writing an ebook, so you might write an ebook on the finances of the logging industry as an example. So in that context, you can then use the ebook infrastructures that are out there, or the different distribution channels that are distributing ebooks. That would be another channel to get your content out there. So one way of looking at it is like, I need to produce content, and then also how do I get that content to as many eyeballs as possible? And then, of course, you've got your strategy in place. So then once you've got the content to the eyeballs, how do you get the eyeballs to the next level? One method of digital marketing, and one that I'm not familiar with, is in-game advertising. So I gave up playing video games when I became a web developer. I also stare at this screen more than I do. But apparently the way it works is that if you're playing a game, inside that game is advertising. So that if your target audience is gamers, or a certain demographic that are gamers, then that makes sense to actually get inside the game. And if you're strategic about it, you may look at the game's actual narrative and the actual stages of the game, or the actual things that the people are doing at that time in the game, and then work out how that would link in a real sophisticated way to your campaign. And then you could place that advertisement not just as a flashy dumb ad, but actually something that's relevant to the game. Another form of digital marketing is sponsorship, and that will come in a few ways. In that context, when we were talking about network mapping in a previous webinar, looking at your communities or your forums that are influential, in which case you would then sponsor them. So that might be sponsor the running of an online forum or a Facebook group or something, or maybe it's the sponsoring of content, et cetera, et cetera. So in that context, you're looking at something that strategically works with your campaign. So again, with a forestry campaign, there may be an event or something that's actually working for the same values and the same goals that you are, and then you may use some of your revenue stream to support them, which is directly supporting your aims, but then allows you to get more diversity in your campaign and then grow your campaign off that. Good old-fashioned merchandise. This is probably offline, but I think it's quite important to push there. If you can afford printing, then merchandise is great, especially if we jump back to influencers. If you've got a celebrity that's wearing your t-shirt while giving an interview on the forest, it's a great way to get your messaging out there. So there's new processes such as Redbubble, which allow you to print on demand. So when we did the closed Pine Gap protest, we set up a heap of different graphics like t-shirts and flags and banners and those sort of things. We didn't set any profit margin on it, so it's just cost to produce. And so then people could come along, download the shirts, download the banners and all those sort of things. And then that was helping grow our campaign, because when you saw pictures of the campaign, when we were then later doing our marketing during the actual protest, then we looked a lot more professional and looked a lot more sharp. And then also, like when I'm wearing my t-shirt around since then, people are asking me, what is this Pine Gap thing? And then that's a great conversation starter. So you can run a whole merchandise line without spending a cent, and Redbubble's one of them. There are a few of them out there. The main problem with that is that it's harder to source an ethical approach to producing your merchandise. In saying that, though, it's also print on demand, so you're also reducing wastage there as well. So, okay, so another form of marketing is affiliate. So affiliate marketing in a digital context could be, say, if I'm selling a software, just say I was selling these webinars as a paid version, and say it was $100 to access them. And so I could do an affiliate program where anyone that signed up, somebody to my webinar training would then get $5. And so then they'd go, oh, well, if I sell a lot of these, I can make a lot of money. So then they start then running their own campaigns, their own marketing. I spoke to an affiliate marketer, professional affiliate marketer, and the way that they tend to work is they'll be running on 50, 100 products at a time. And they will get a little bit from each one. They have lots of products, and it just trickles in to become an income. Now, for not-for-profits, then a application of this concept is called distributed fundraising. So there's a few CRMs, or client relationship managers. So they're the fundraising software that you use that allow users to then run their own fundraising campaign. So you might be running a campaign for, your annual fundraiser for the Save the Gippsland Forest campaign. So in that case, you could then ask all of your all your keen supporters to then run their own fundraising campaign that then fits through. So then they can then use their personal connections and say, look, I'm raising money for the forest. And then you can see the numbers that they're doing. So that's a sort of a not-for-profit application to affiliate marketing. And I'm sure you can think of some other examples if you think about it. And another form of digital marketing, I've got this right at the bottom, which is ad placement and pay-per-click. And I would not recommend this as a method. And it's also been shown to be quite fraudulent. So this is where the digital marketing industry tried to replicate the traditional advertising model. So, a newspaper, you've got an ad there. So they're like, well, we've got a web page, and put an ad there. Now, and then they go, we'll make this better because we'll only charge people when somebody clicks on it. Now, what's been proven is there's been so many robots that just click on those ads. The data coming back of who clicked on it is actually, it's just not relevant. So I'd be looking at the data with skepticism, and I think that ad placement is just not a good approach. Affiliate marketing is far better approach because that way you can actually see what's happening there, and they've got a genuine audience. Ad placement may be useful if you can game the system, maybe if you can get more targeted. So there might be a certain website that has advertising that you're campaigning on, or maybe they're sponsored by someone, and then you can maybe able to run a website sort of highlighting how crap they are. So you may, if you can target your ads, you may be able to use it in some way like that. In that case, it's not the advertising nor the pay-per-clicks you're interested in. You're just more, actually protesting their site using the advertising system. Okay, do we have any questions? Example of merch, training seminars. Okay, cool. I was just reading the chat. All right, so these are the different approaches that you run for social media, and I do recommend that search is your primary. So do the work to get your search. We'll be doing search tomorrow, so to get your search ranking. Generally, search is an ongoing thing, but it can also be a bit of set and forget. So that way you can get that in place. Then the next phase is social media. And start building your campaign through that. And then the rest of the stuff can sort of dovetail into that. And again, I will emphasize strategy. You've got limited resources. And also some people go, well, I don't have time to digital market, and our team are too busy trying to save the forest. We don't have. So in that case, just start doing some basics. Then once you've got a basic framework, then you can then recruit, look for volunteers within your community, people who then may be able to help you, and then working on building that digital media team. But there is very strong statistics showing a correlation between effective social media and actually now connecting, building campaigns in a more contemporary context. And I'd say especially now in COVID, because offline organising is obviously being minimised. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about homework for you. Digital marketing is a massive area. And what I'm trying to do with my webinars is to grab all my experience, my research, and then distill it into more of a layman's terms, simple framework that people can get started. Or if they just get a few points and just start on that. So once you've gone beyond what I've spoken to you about, then I'd really recommend you do your own research. And I've just got this whole section to start you on that journey. As a digital marketer, it's something that changes quite fast. Some basics will stay the same. So you really got to always be paying attention to see what's happening. Every now and then, dip back in, do intensive research. So the way that I do is every period, 6 months, a year, sometimes depending on what I'm doing, I'll then do intensive research on what's happening in marketing at the time, so that I can just keep my skills going. Now I'm going to talk about mainstream marketing versus activist marketing. And I don't think there is any versus. I think it's exactly the same, because mainstream is trying to sell an idea or sell a product, and activism is trying to sell an idea or sell an action. It's the same thing. So I think it's very important to look at what mainstream's doing. Now, I find that green marketers or not-for-profit marketers are just behind the game, and there's also not many of them. So if you're going to spend your time researching not-for-profit marketing, you'll be getting secondhand information. Now, in saying that, there are some good strategists and good marketers out there, so there's just not a lot of them. So in that context, a lot of time I'll do my research within the mainstream marketers. It's also interesting in this space because a lot of marketers just simply don't have any ethics. So it's also interesting, and they've got high budgets. So it's interesting to see what can be achieved if you've got low ethics, high budget, and to see some of the techniques and some of the results that they're getting. Then when we then apply that to activism, we can then apply our level of ethics over it. Obviously, our budgets are different, but we can still get the key learnings about what's happening in the mainstream. The other thing I really recommend is you get an alternative email. I've got an email which is just for email newsletters, because I think a lot of the learning in digital marketing is actually being marketed to. Now, it's really important to then separate you being marketed to your normal email, because if you have, your email being marketed to you, it'll just become overwhelming. So in that context, when I'm doing digital intensive research, I will click on all the marketing ads on Facebook and I will sign up to them. And I'll see what processes, I'll deconstruct what they're doing, how they're communicating with me. I mean, that is the learning process, is actually being on that. But the important thing is I don't want my main email just full of all this crap. So set up a new email. So I'm just going to jump to, I'll share my screen. Now, Net Change is a not-for-profit focused think tank, strategists. They are more in organizing, not just digital, but I'm looking at them as being one of the leading in this. They do digital stuff. As you can see, there's one here, digital engagement, network change, etc. So this organization is really sophisticated, and this is different to mainstream marketing. This is very focused on a not-for-profit context. And they've got a lot of research driving why they're saying certain things. So I recommend sign up to them, start looking at their stuff. The next one I look at is the Commons Social Media Library. I built this website. There was another person that did the graphic design. Then they hired the organization are some really library nerds, and they love research. So this website I'm recommending because they do, it's really well researched and well filtered. The big issue with researching on the internet, as you may know, is there's a little bit of good stuff here, and then there's a lot of crap, and then there's another little bit of good stuff, and there's a lot of crap, and you actually start to blur, and you don't know what's good and what's crap. So it's really good to actually have somebody that knows a bit about what they're talking about, that does that work for you. And Angie was the graphic designer of this website. I'm also a researcher. So this site has heaps of stuff, but here's their digital campaigning stuff to start with. There's a few guides, emails, etc., etc. So there's a really good, and this is focused again on not-for-profit organizing, and a lot of this stuff is talking specifically. So for example, when you're asking for a donation, it is slightly different than when you're trying to sell a product, even though the core concepts are the same. So there's a lot of beautiful resources there, and I recommend you get into it. Okay, so the FWD conference and Organize. So Organize, they sometimes run them as one conference, sometimes they run them as separate. So Organize is more about the theory and strategy of community organizing people, and FWD is the digital component of that. So in my webinar, when I talked about digital strategy, I introduced the fact that digital strategy is always a subset of your organizational strategy. So they sort of divide that there. I think there's one, these dates are wrong. I think there's one coming up soon, and they'll be online, I assume. But anyway, we can follow that up. So they basically have workshops, and they have lots of really good people come together. So I really do recommend the FWD and Organize conference. For Pacific not-for-profit organizing. And I also give them heads up as well, because in earlier conferences, so Sally's saying progress is online and cheap to book in right now. The thing I love about FWD and Organize is in the early days, they got a lot of criticism from people of color, from people of diversity, and their response is generally to give them the microphone and to change the way they run things and to actually bring those people up. So I've got a lot of respect for the way they respond to their criticism in a not-for-profit construct. The other big conference is the Connecting Up conference. And again, they're running theirs online. It's coming up soon. So this is really, this organization focuses a bit more on service providers, not-for-profits. So by that I mean, like if you're doing medical supplies, or like maybe elderly support, or social services, homelessness, that sort of, like actually providing services. Obviously, they overlap, and so this is more sort of service provider type vibe, whereas FWD and organizer more campaigner vibe. Now, Connecting Up's also interesting while we're here because they also run a full webinar program. If you're into webinars like this one, then they also run webinars free and paid. And Connecting Up is really important for Australian not-for-profits because they are the Australian representative for TechSoup. Now, to speak English, TechSoup is an American organization. So when software companies want to give not-for-profit licenses, so for example, Google gives away $10,000 worth of free advertising, AdWords per month for a not-for-profit, they outsource all the management of all their licenses to TechSoup. So for you to get, so Adobe, there's a whole Microsoft, Apple, there's like all the tech companies, they go through TechSoup so that you can get substantial discounts. And Connecting Up's the Australian version. So I recommend checking them out. There's heaps of discounts. They also sell hardware, computers, that sort of stuff. And you'll save yourself a lot of dollars if you're a registered not-for-profit. Okay, so that's sort of the overview a bit of the not-for-profit space for you to go and explore and do more homework. So now I'm going to jump a little bit more into the mainstream. This is Tim Martin. He does social media, marketing, Google workshops. Now, I've worked with him on a few things, and I know that he's really keen to support not-for-profits. He just doesn't understand how to do that. He's more focused on a corporate space. So I recommend if you've got some ideas on collaboration, then he'll be all ears. For example, he's got a canvas here on how to work out your social media in a more of a simplistic way. This social media planning and marketing can get very complex, but I urge you just to simplify it, to get going, start seeing the results, and then as you start to grow, you can get complexity then. But yeah, make things simple in the short term. Okay, so Google. Now, Google do a lot of things. One of the things that Google does is they run an academy, and some of them are free and some of them are paid. So this is a course on the fundamentals of digital marketing. Now, this also includes Google certification. So if you wanted this to be your job, you want it to be a digital marketer. So if you went to your favorite not-for-profit and go, look, I'm actually certified by Google, I've done the course, you know, that's going to look a lot better on your resume. So there's 26 modules, there's 40 hours here. So I've got my digital marketing down to 3 sessions of an hour and a half. Like this is 40 hours. So quite intense, but it's for free and it's aimed at a beginner. So if you're really inspired to become a digital marketer, then this may be a good place to start for you. Okay, so the Noob Guide to Online Marketing. Now, this is an old guide. This is 2011, but I think it's very relevant and there's still a lot of lessons to be learned from this. Now, noob, for people who don't know what a noob is a gamer term for people who play video games for like an amateur. It's a similar term to in the surfing culture is calling someone a grommet. So basically it's a beginner's naive person's guide to online marketing. Okay, so, and then they've sold it, I think, to Moz here. But anyway, here's the link to it. And then if we jump down, they've got this infographic, and the way it works is it's divided it up all the different things. Now they call their landing pages the glue, and you'll see that my pathways diagram also circular, and it has the website in the middle. So this is, I think, the key strategy to do that. But they go in a lot more detail, Now you can also download the PDF, and I recommend you do. So the idea is that it's a 6-month setup. So they go on the first day, do this, and the first week, get these things in place because these are more important. Then the second week, do this, and for 6 months. So the idea is to build a digital marketing engine for your commercial, but obviously it can work for not-for-profit. Now to get it, you have to tweet them. This is marketing. So with any of these, now we're moving to the commercial side, they're going to get your email and sign up to get the product. that's digital marketing. As I introduce this section, though, I do recommend that you actually do go for the ride and actually see what will happen when you download it. Do they follow you up? What is the emails? What sort of language they're using? That sort of stuff. Okay, James Tuckerman. He's a Melbourne-based consultant. He started up Antil magazine, so he's got a lot of background in small business and building and marketing for small business. He was one of the early adapters from taking his magazine from print to online. So he has a wealth of knowledge in the mainstream small business environment. The thing I'm recommending James for is that he has a lot of free webinars that are quite quality. For example, I did his Facebook pipeline webinar, and his model is he gives a lot of free content up front and then shows you how hard it is, and then basically then wants to sign you up to a course where he mentors and helps you to do the hard stuff. But that's really great because he's providing good free content. Now this one I found searching when I was updating my links for this webinar. So I just thought that this was quite a nice guide. When I was researching, a lot of the guides are just over the top for this audience, or so I did a bit just looking at what would work for this audience that I'm working with. I've just got Glenn, maybe when your market is more corporate, consider LinkedIn as a marketing avenue. Yes, I do agree. There's a lot of scope for LinkedIn at the moment. Facebook and Instagram are very saturated, so that means it's hard to get traction. LinkedIn is sort of growing as a medium, so therefore your content is more likely to go out there. So I've been focusing on LinkedIn to promote my content for these webinars, and my next phase of marketing will be focusing a lot on LinkedIn because I'll be selling consultancy services and digital services to people that are usually at a professional level, even though they may be in a small grassroots groups on the ground. So they're likely to have a LinkedIn profile and be looking at my profile and those sort of things. So and again, that comes back to the point of looking at what your audience, where your audience is, what platforms they're using, so that you can target those in that way. Okay. Benefits, not features. Now I've put "and" in there, so I will promote to say you want to sell the benefits and features. So I just wanted to go through what this statement means, because it's very important for our digital marketing to be communicating the benefits. So this is once you're touching with people, what are you communicating? So this is a bit of a frame to use. So in this context, we're looking at what can this do, or what can we do, or why is our campaign, what can we do for the person? Now, a lot of people want to say, well, what can a person do for us? But we want to be looking at what can we do for them. And by person, I'm using the word, user, customer, activist, etc., etc. So in that context, like what we can do for them, well, maybe we can just make them feel better by donating or getting involved in your campaign. Can actually just maybe that can empower them. Those sort of things. So we're looking at rather than going, you can do this to save the forest. It's like you can saving the forest, doing this can make you feel like this, or you can be empowered to help save the forest. So it's just a really different way of framing it, but it's really important. And I find that some of the, we talked in earlier webinars about humanizing data, and I think that a lot of marketers, they just look at people's stats and data. It's really important to look at them as people and how they're going to feel and think about the communication. Here's an example I just got off the internet. So supplements or vitamins, the features could be that, they boost your bones, or they help your immune system, this or that. But the actual benefits to the person is they want to get stronger, or they want to win Miss Universe in this example, or sleep better. So in that context, if you're marketing these supplements, you'll be saying these will make you sleep better, not so much the technical features of this. This will increase the chemicals which help promote sleep. That's why also I've got and, not or. So a lot of marketers going, you should just sell the benefits, not the features. Whereas I'm saying, well, smart people will respond very well to the benefits, but then they also look at the features. Like, why would this supplement help me sleep better? And then you can start looking at the features as well. And I also think it's important to not treat people as they're stupid, whereas a lot of marketers just see people as just malleable. So here's another example. The features here is that it's wood, it's unbreakable, it's cloth. However, the benefits of the umbrella is it's sunny, it helps keep the sun off, and helps keep you dry. So in this context, if we're marketing the umbrellas, we'll be more looking at like, this great umbrella is really convenient, it helps you keep you dry, it fits in your purse, it's really easy, it fits your lifestyle. And then rather than talking about more of the specifics of how the actual arms open up. And a key example of this is also car ads, especially luxury car ads. So cars will have a lot of complexity. They've got really advanced engineering, they've got advanced efficiencies, and all this stuff that we can talk about why this motor is better than that motor. But if you look at, say, Mercedes or a BMW ad, you'll see that they're driving a car out in the outside on a beautiful big road. They're talking about freedom and lifestyle. They'll probably put in attractive person turning their head looking at them. So in that context, luxury cars are no longer selling the fact that they're a superior technology. They are selling that it's a lifestyle, or how you're going to feel when you're driving this car. You're going to feel freedom. You're going to feel the attention. You're going to feel like you're someone important. So it's the feeling. And then additionally, they have another type of marketing, whereas they'll send all the stats and that to the actual car magazines and the car websites that are interested only in the facts and figures and the stats. So that audience will jump to there and will reinforce both audiences. So in that context, a lot of people with luxury car, they'll say, well, the car nerds over there are saying that this is an awesome car. So therefore, when I'm telling other people why I'm buying it, it's because it's an awesome car. But really what they're buying is the actual how they're feeling and that they look really cool in the car. Pretty much you look at nearly every car coming out the market is just way over-spec'd for any 110 Ks on a road, city driving, all those sort of things. And another really interesting example is Apple versus Microsoft. I couldn't find any examples when I did the research, but there's a period a couple of years ago when Microsoft jumped into the market of the portable music player. This was when iPods were really early. So the features are 1 gigabytes of MP3s. So that's technically what it does. But what the actual benefits to users is 1,000 songs in your pocket. Really key difference. It's actually the same thing technically, but the way you're framing it. 1,000 songs in my pocket is a different sell to actually storage. The other, it's also interesting to look at Apple marketing way from the start, because they're always minimalist. They will sell an idea before they sell the tech. So they do have very good technical specifications, and in later years, they're becoming less competitive on those. But however, they still will sell the idea that Mac is minimal. So if you have a look at the packaging that Apple's come in, it's always very simple pictures, very simple slogans. You go to the Apple website and the first page will be like what you can do with it. And then you'll click a tab that's got the specifications. So it's just really a different way of framing it. So in a not-for-profit context, there's a lot of learnings there. So in that context, it's also looking at framing that for not-for-profit, and an example is, instead of saving the forest for the orangutans, it's about how you can then sell the benefits for that person to save their orangutan. They can feel better about it. They can offset some of their guilt of some of their behavior, or they may be, be able to, with some merchandise, show to their friends that they helped save that. So what's more interesting, which is motivating that person to actually to save the orangutan. Now, of course, we are focusing at people that care, but we also do want to take them to the next level, or we also want to get people that don't care to actually care about the orangutans, right? That'd be an ideal situation as a not-for-profit marketer, to actually get someone to care about something that they otherwise wouldn't have. So in that context, we the reason we're doing this is we increase our results, and in that context lead to more donations, etc. So we really want to then look at the individual, how they feel about our marketing. We did an exercise on Friday using t-shirts, looking at people's social status. So we basically grabbed 4 t-shirts, which were all Save the Planet themed. And then we got people to choose which one that they would wear. And then we were able to deconstruct like why they would wear that t-shirt. And we could look at social status and those sort of things. So you can check that one out. It's up on YouTube. And we're really looking at people's personal identity, like why they would want to associate themselves with your campaign or with getting involved with your actions. We also want to explore their fears and dreams, so that we can then talk to them a little bit more about that. And also on Friday's webinar, I gave an example of a gym, which was basically a psychological sell. So I'll just explain a little bit about that, because a key part of the gym membership sales was benefits, not features. So we'd give them an interview at the start of the tour of the gym, and would work out what they wanted to get from the gym. Some people wanted to lose weight. So you'd look at that a bit more, you'd ask them a bit more, why would they want to lose weight? Well, maybe because they're feeling depressed, or maybe because their partner's not giving them attention anymore. Maybe they're getting married. Maybe they want to gain weight. Maybe they're feeling like less amongst their peers. So in that context, you're looking at what is motivating them to join the gym. Then when you're showing them the gym, you're not talking about, well, here's the exercise machine where you can just run until you're in a sweat every day for 30 minutes, and it lets you go for 30 minutes, 50 minutes, and you can adjust it. That's not really exciting, the features. But what is more exciting to that user, to that person, is that you can cycle for 40 minutes, and then that will start cutting your fat. And then if you start doing that like a couple of days a week, then we'll get you in shape in no time, and then you'll look hot for your partner. So you're not selling them the bike, it's what the bike can do for them. Instead of showing them the heavy weights, so you can lift as many weights as you want, and you can lift them heavier and heavier. Now that sounds a bit painful. Rather than if you use the weights every day for a couple of days, then you'll actually start getting the results, etc., etc. So it's really important to frame it from a really horrible piece of gym equipment that's boring and painful to the actual effects that you get from the gym equipment, which is how you feel, how you look, how people perceive you, back to social status, all those sort of things. And another example for not-for-profits is what we affectionately call the FESA community versus, say, mainstream not-for-profit community. So FESAs, for those that don't know, is an appropriation of the term feral, which used to be a derogatory term. So now it's a term used with pride. So more of your radical activists, maybe. So in that context, they will be more, do-it-yourself clothes. They'll have more of a punk aesthetic. They'll be more like screw you. Versus, say, maybe more of a mainstream not-for-profit that's aiming at, more mainstream people. They may wear suits to events, or they'll at least wear smart casual business attire if they're speaking in public. So in that context, if your campaign is targeting more of a pheasant crew or for more mainstream crew, then you can then frame the campaign, the benefits more to what they'll resonate with, what's in it for them. Okay, any questions with that? Okay, cool. Now I'm going to talk about a sales funnel. And a lot of people, when we start talking about sales funnels, just think corporate business. And I was in a strategic call with a not-for-profit the other week, and I then explained a sales funnel in their context, and it made a bit more sense. I'm also going to then also jump back to the pathways document that I've pretty much run in every one of these webinars, the pathways. So a sales funnel is just another way of also looking at the same pathways. And then in that context, we're looking at a specific example. So the one I've got on the run sheet, I'll show you the run sheet. You can see my sales funnel there that I did with just here. So this is a funnel that's specifically talking about an event. So we want a person to come to our event. So in that context, the first stage of digital marketing is always the initial reach. How do you initially get to them? So in this context, and I've just made up these numbers, but we are actually then going to use these numbers we're going to look at stats, and we're going to you can actually document this. If your social media and your Google Analytics are saying you've reached 1,000 people, and then you can also look at your stats, say that you actually had 200 people visit your site. You've got your analytics in your newsletter, which is saying that you've got 50 people sign up to the newsletter. And then from there, you've got 20 people that actually read your newsletter. You sent it to 50, only 20 read it. And then from there, 4 of them registered, and then 1 came to an event. So this is a pretty standard model, though. You always get drop-off through each stage. So in this context, it's important to define these funnels for the different things that you're doing or different approaches. So if you're trying to get donations, then you could go, okay, well, what is the actual full process of getting a donation? What are the different steps that people are going through? And this is related, if not the same thing as our journey, user journeys that we did in the first session, pathways, that sort of stuff. Another term is ladders. So in this context, it's important to look at this, because then we can look at volume plus conversion. And these are 2 key concepts to look at with sales funnels, and why it's good to visualize a sales funnel in this way. The first way of looking at it is, if I want 2 people to come to the event, then I need to get 1,000 people to see it, because the mass is 1,250, 44 to 1. So in that case, I would then go, right, well, if it's going to cost me $100 or $500 to reach 500,000 people, then that means that I'll get 500 people to my event. So for $500, I'm just talking a hypothetical medium here, $500, I can then get 500 people to my event. Great. So that's one way of approaching it. Just like increase the volume at the top of the funnel, and you increase the volume at the bottom of the funnel. The other more interesting approach, and you should be doing both of these, is conversion. So this is how effective you are. So if we go to 1,000 people on our social, and only 200 go to our site. Now, if we could optimize our social media content so that more people go back to our website, so you've got a better call to action, mate, you've got better content, you've got more emotional writing, you're really looking at the benefits of why I should visit the website, not just because you want me to go to the website. So then if we can get 400 people to click from 1,000 people on the social, that means we've then doubled our people come to the event. And then the same way, if we can get twice as many people to sign up to our newsletter, so then we really got to refine our ask. Do we have those pop-ups of newsletter pop-ups? Like, what is going to convince somebody to sign up to the newsletter? What is the copy there? That sort of thing. Okay, so then your newsletters, like if you're sending out boring newsletters all the time, people aren't going to read them. So again, to increase your conversion, you then look at, well, what is our role of email and how we're using it? And then the copy in your email to get more people to register for an event. So say we've got 4 people registering for an event, but only 1 comes per 4 people. Why is that? So to increase conversion, we could say, well, maybe we need to follow them up, send them some reminders, or maybe we can send them some exciting things that are going to happen at the event as we trickle the event. Or maybe we can also then run, continue our social media, because back to the concept of we need to hit them 8 touch points. Even though they've signed up, if we hit them with some more touch points, it may reinforce it. So then we can maybe get, for every 4 people that register, we may get 2 people. So if we refine that conversion down all the steps of the funnel, we may be able to turn that 1,000 to 5. And then we can say, if we want 500, then we need to get So that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Because I find that a lot of people with doing digital marketing, they just will have one of those bits of the funnel where they're just not interested in, or they're just not paying attention to, and then they're just losing that conversion. So it's the whole process that's really important, and you'll see that as a theme through all my webinars, is that define the process, then optimize it, test it, et cetera, et cetera. So a key part of this funnel is a CRM, or Client Relationship Manager. So this is basically a database, and in this example, it's the database where people sign up to your newsletter. Now we're doing a whole webinar on organizing people with databases, and we're pretty much going to run that as getting some experts on the most recommended platforms and talking about the pros and cons and that sort of stuff. So we'll be doing 2 sessions on CRMs as part of that. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some other cheesy marketing, which is an opt-in gift or lead magnet, which is part of the marketing. So this is usually used at the first phase, where we're, actually I'll just go stop share, where we're first reaching people. So to increase the conversion of people that you reach through your marketing to people who come to your site and sign up, there's a concept called opt-in gift. So for example, if we jump back to the noobs for marketing for noobs guide, then that is the opt-in gift, like that is the lead magnet. So you're going to the website, you're signing up for the thing, downloading it. And you'll find that when you go through all of those marketing processes, somewhere there they'll have something free that then you can download. So I'm going to just share screen and just show you some cheesy examples of this concept. And this is from a company called King Kong, and they're like one of these hyper cheesy mainstream marketing companies. So they've got this is a PDF, 5 things to super successful to do online, and then they've got a few pages of written content, etc., etc. Another one here is steps to creating killer content strategy. They'll 8 times your leads. So in this case, they're saying we will increase your conversion by 8 times using these steps. And so it's sort of these little bite-sized bits of bait, and like, yeah, I want that. So then you'll sign up, and then they'll keep sending you quality content until you're resonating with their brand, and then they can go for the sale. Another example is 6 hacks to crush it with Instagram ads. They use really over-the-top language, 300% results, that sort of stuff, but you'll get the idea there. So in a not-for-profit context, so in my context, one of the next phases after I've done the webinars is I'll be converting a lot of these key concepts into ebooks, PDF, so that then I can also send them out in the same context. So I just wanted to talk a little bit now about not-for-profit adaptation of this concept, because obviously you're not going to have a cheesy opt-in gift on your website to sell leads. Okay, so one of the current ones is to appeal to people's emotions. So instead of getting a PDF, you get an emotional feel-good about something, or you get an empowerment. Which is the traditional way is a petition or an email action. So I'll be like, save the orangutans, sign this petition. And so when someone's signing it, they feel like they've done something. It's that feeling. So that's the opt-in gift there. Even though we don't see it, it is that emotional empowerment, or the feeling I've done something. So the thing is, most petitions are irrelevant as a petition. A digital petition, pretty much, in some cases they work, but pretty much they're completely ineffective. What you run petitions for is that it's to get people's email, so then you can continue along the process, so that you can actually build a relationship, so then you can actually get them to do something actually effective. And sometimes it's really hard to get someone to do something effective first relationship, so you might get them to do something that they think sort of might work, even though it doesn't, but at least you can start that process. Email actions, which is, click here and we'll send an email to a politician to say that we're going to stop logging. Again, politicians pretty much going to ignore those, but what it will allow you to start that process. So that's a standard way not-for-profits are doing that at the moment, and it is the same thing. It is an opt-in gift. It's a lead magnet. It's just a different way of thinking about it. So I've also got on my list here adaptation 2. So this is maybe applying that mainstream way of thinking to a not-for-profit context. So for example, how-to guides. So you may, if you're, say, saving the forests, you may have a guide on how to run a forest blockade, or how to run a forest campaign, or how to run a fundraising night for the forests, or something like that, just so that people that want to be empowered and want to get involved, but are a bit skeptical, don't really want to get involved with your org, then they can download these guides and actually start doing the things. Merchandise is another really good approach. Again, it's not a free gift, but maybe you could work out some way that there is a free gift. Maybe you'll post them a poster. So we did a series of anti-nuclear maps. So we basically mapped out all the nuclear sites in Australia, and we got sponsorship to print them. So we'll post them. So if you go to Friends of the Earth Anti-Nuclear Collective, they'll post those posters to anybody. So we could reframe that to, like, if you sign up, we'll send you a free poster or whatever. And the other interesting thing is quality educational resources. So someone may be really interested in the forest. So it could be, the birds of the forest, and you could produce a really good ebook on the birds of the forest, or other, really beautiful things about the forest that people go, this is great, I want to learn more about the forest. And in which case that's really good, because then you obviously get their contacts, so you can then start talking to them about saving the forest, but then it's also emotionally connecting them to the forest a bit more. So, if you sit down with your people and sort of did a brainstorm of like what would work as an opt-in gift or lead magnet, and you can have that with or without the cheese. But the concept, just to repeat that, is that in the sales funnel, the 1,000 people reached, in social media, if you reach people, say paid advertising, really, really weak lead. And it's unlikely that they're going to then action or click onto your website. Especially if you're looking at it like save the forest, they'll be like, whatever, keep scrolling. Whereas if you've got, so the idea of an opt-in is to actually get them to then go, oh, this is something for me, and then they'll click through to the website. So if you're saying, instead of saying, click here to save the forest, it might go, click here to get a free PDF download of all the birds in the forest, or birds in the forest educational guide for kids, or something like that. Then people go, yeah, that's cool, I'd like that free resource. They can click through. Now, I'm not saying this should replace your normal marketing about save the forest. However, it could be an additional and things that you can experiment with. Because the idea of, you really need to experiment to get from 1,000, that number from 1,000 to 2,000. From 1,000 people to your social to 200 to visit your site. So these are sort of ideas where you can increase that conversion. Another really important part of sales funnels and pathways conversions is automation. So for example, if you sign up on my commercial website, just on the contact form, basically our email automatically send you an email. And it will say, so most people, when they're wanting to build a website, they'll be, how much does it cost? So the main question. So I send back an email, and this is important because if I'm too expensive for somebody, then they'd be good to talk about that up front. Or if I'm too cheap or not right for them. So I basically send an email saying, here's my rates. That doesn't really mean much because we quote custom, but here's some examples of some quotes. And here's how we work. So also show how we work because we work a little bit different to a normal agency. So if people go, yeah, nah, then that allows them to like shoot an email back going, yeah, sorry, this ain't going to work. Now, for the few people that resonates with, then that means that then when we call them, speak to them the next time, then we've already had that conversation. Now, it's really interesting because a lot of people, even though it's a robot that sends it and it's signed by my name, they actually think I sent it. And I've got emails going back going, oh, thanks for the fast reply. That's really great. And so that psychological start of that relationship is that they contacted me and then straight away they got a response with all the information they need. So that's just an automated email. You can just set that up. So any sign up form that you've got, what you should be sending an email, say thank you or something like that. Now, depending on what you're doing, you can also set it up. So for example, they've signed up for a week. Then maybe in 2 weeks, you might send them another email saying, hey, it's been 2 weeks and we've been doing these things. Do you want to get involved or whatever your pathway is? So once you've worked out your pathway, you're looking at how can we automate this as much as possible to save time and resources, but also to be more efficient. And then you can also test, see how that works. So a lot of your CRMs, especially these days, do automation. There's also tools like Zapier, which allows you to connect different types of software. So you might be using different types of software you're placing together, and you want to have a situation where person does this, it goes to that. I mean, they're getting a little bit more complex, but the concept's pretty basic. Like, how can we automate this? And it will save you a heap of time in the future, but it also makes you more effective, and it makes your experience for your user so much richer. Quite important. Another concept in digital marketing is called remarketing. Now, the idea of that is that you market to people who have already interacted with you. So there's sort of different levels. So for example, if someone's donated to you, then you would then market just to that list. So that's quite common in not-for-profits at the moment. So if someone donates to you through your CRM, then you have them tagged, and then you would contact them with special asks. Or if they're really big donors, you'd actually have people whose job it is just to look at that side of things. But remarketing is also much finer than that. So with some of the CRMs, you can actually track if they saw you on social media and clicked on a link or liked a link. So that might be a very small response. However, if you're then paying for a Facebook ad, you might say, right, well, we're going to send the Facebook ad. We've had 3,000 people that have liked something. We're just going to send it to them because they're more likely to interact with that content because they've already liked something of ours than just a stranger, not a stranger, someone who's never interacted with us before. So remarketing can be quite thin, all the way down to like a full donor. But it's important to think about remarketing. In that context, though, then you need to set up data and management. But this is one of the reasons why you'd set up data and data systems and CRMs in the first place, so that you can remarket to them. And I would also just add another ethics, inverted commas. The marketing industry basically has no ethics as far as tracking and marketing, like tracking people, building big databases. The Cambridge Analytical scandal is a good example of that. So I think it's also really important for us not-for-profit people just to also think about the ethical layer. So if someone's clicked on something that we've liked before and they're already in a medium like Facebook that's tracking them, it's actually, I don't see any negative ethics to then send them something that may be interesting. But if they're then going to the point of installing Facebook track pixels, and you're starting to like track them outside of their understanding, then it does get to quite a grey area. And I think the ethics of this sort of marketing needs to be discussed in a lot more detail, mainstream and also not-for-profit. And then here's another quite cheesy marketing concept, but it's really important: cost per acquisition. So cost per acquisition. So this is the cost it takes to get someone to do the thing. So in our sales funnel context we've got here, it's what is the cost to get one person to the event. So back to the sales funnel, we spent, $500 doing content, producing content so that we could push it out to our social media. And we spent another $500 on advertising to push it out. And then we got 20 people to come to the event. So then that works out, whatever the maths is, per person, it cost us $6 to get to the event. That is a really key term. So in a commercial context, if your profit of that event is $5 and it costs you $6 to get them there, you're not going to be in business for very long. So the idea is with the sales funnel, we've talked about volume and conversion, but it's also to reduce the cost per acquisition. Now, in a not-for-profit context, it's how much does it cost to pay for a full-time campaigner that runs the campaign? Like, what does it cost per, you can work it out in the same way. Because what you're looking at is the efficiencies there and try to increase your effectiveness. And so it is important to put a capitalist frame over this because it allows you to just be more efficient, which is far better because when you're asking people for money, you can look them in the eye and say, look, we run as efficiently as possible. We're going to spend your money the best way possible. And our marketing is but it's a really key factor to be looking at. What is this costing you? And again, a lot of this is data driven, and I get that, a small team can't have all this complex data. So even if you're just guessing, like even if you have no time for this, at least go, I reckon it's costing us about $5 this. So then if you're just guessing at that point, it might be a quick meeting with your team and go, what do you guess it's costing? What do you guess it's costing? And then you can at least have an idea of what you're doing. If you're just blindly running a marketing campaign and social media and this, and you have no idea what it's costing you, then you're probably not going to be effective or efficient with anything you're doing. And then this segues us to data and improvement planning. Okay, so there's a real difference in online marketing to offline marketing. And that is everything's measurable. Everything's measurable. So it's really important to measure everything. Now, you measure everything. Well, you don't measure everything. It's in context to what we're doing. Then you actually use that data. So in that context, I really recommend that you get, whether you're doing that monthly or a few monthlies, you're actually getting a summary of all these different data, and then you translate that to human terms, and then you can present that to the team. It goes back to cost per acquisition. So you might go, look, we've spent 50 hours doing this, and we've got this many likes, we've got this many people sign up, we've got this many people take action. This is really key because you might say, well, look, I've been really good digital marketer in our not-for-profit, and we've got all these results. Now, if I could pay for a part-time person to help me, we can go exponential, and we can really win this campaign. Now, how would you then convince somebody who doesn't understand digital of that argument? They're like, what do you mean? It's just Facebook. Why would you want to pay for another person when we could be? So in that context, if you've actually got the statistics and you can show this is what I've done with this many hours, but the framework's in place, now all I need to do is pump content through it. So if you can give me so it's really important to be able to frame what you're doing. So you want to track what you're doing, then you want to test what you're doing and then refine it. So jumping back to that sales funnel is that you want to track how people are going through the funnel, and then you want to do experiments on how to improve those sort of things. And then you want to just always refining. So part of a digital marketer's job is constant refining of their pathways, brand personalities, personas, how people interacting, all that sort of stuff. And then if you get really good with your specific community, then you'll get the results. And Sally's just posted to the chat the Australian Progress event, which we talked about earlier. She's just sent a link to that. So I do recommend. And also, Greg has sent options for bulk printing. There's also the sustainable paper guide if you're doing home printing. Although I also would recommend a paperless office and only be printing when you really, really need to. Okay. Now, with all these stats and figures and data, blah, 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 the most important thing to remember is what is your ultimate metric is your goal. So I started this whole webinar series with goals. So if your goal is to get a donation, then that's your ultimate metric. Really, your conversions and your Facebook and this and that doesn't mean much in context to to the stats on your goal. Now, if you're not for profit, donations also isn't that great a goal. Generally, the big orgs are more into that side of things. But it might be like how many people you got to come to the protest in the forest. So if your aim is to get people into the forest, then that is your ultimate metric. And then all the other metrics and all the other data is just supportive of that. So if someone's arguing, well, we've got heaps more Facebook likes, and you're like, well, we've got more people in the forest, I think the latter strategy is far more effective than who cares how many Facebook likes you've got. So always put your ultimate metric in context to all this other stuff that I'm saying here. So it's really important to refine your personas and improve your service design. So I did a webinar previously talking in detail about what user personas are and the service design, so you can check that out. But the basic idea is you're setting up a system where when you first see them, when they go through the processes to the end result where they've come to the forest or they've donated or done something like that. So you're trying to refine that along the way. Okay, so you can also get some basic data coming out of Facebook and Google Analytics. So I'm just going to share screen and just have a look at that quickly. Okay, it's always risky jumping into Facebook in a live context, but here we go. This is my page. And so if you click home and it's your page, you'll have this thing called insights. And they're sort of doing that in the short term. So people reached, post engagements, people likes. Now you'll see huge increases. That's mainly because I don't post much. And now that I'm running the webinar thing, then I'm posting every time I publish on the YouTube, I'm posting, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm getting obviously a lot more engagements and things like that. But this is really interesting stats as far as your pipelines. So if I go click see all, we get some more data come in. And I'm just going to jump down to people. Because remember where we talked earlier about character personas and who's coming, so we can actually see what's happening. So most of the people here are coming from Australia, and within Australia they're coming from Melbourne. Now that makes sense because that's my personal networks, and I'm using my social media quite a lot to promote these, and I'm still implementing my search marketing. So I'm actually doing it opposite to what I'm recommending in this webinar, where I'm starting with social, I'm going to follow up with my SEO. So that makes sense. Now we look at here, 57% I'm engaging more with women than men. Now this makes sense and is reinforcing my experience in my offline training. And I tend to find, and this is an assumption, that men are more likely to say, I know how to do something and just wing it. Whereas women are more likely to go, actually, I want to actually learn how to do this properly. And so I find that I just simply get more women coming to my digital training, and they're prepared to actually learn how to do it properly rather than just wing it. So we're looking at demographic 25 to 34, but my big one is 35 to 44. So that makes sense. With the feedback, it's usually 35 to 44 where people at that stage where they're upskilling, they're trying to build upon their skills, that sort of stuff. And if I jump to, this is action skills. So we're up 1,600%. So massive stats. But that's mainly because I was dormant, not because I'm a miracle marketer. And then again, if we jump to people, we can start to see those stats. So this is interesting. We're getting even less men interested in action skills than women, for example. We're still getting an overrepresentation of Melbourne. The Cambodia stat is really interesting. So I assume that I've got someone in my networks is promoting into Cambodia. I thought that I'd actually get probably a bit more United States. Anyway, so that'll give you a bit of a idea of what's happening. So if you start learning what this means and paying attention. So if you're doing various events, or maybe you're doing a campaign, you can then look at the traffic, see who it's resonating with. If you're targeting men and you're getting mostly women, then maybe look at your language and your framing, that sort of thing. Okay, so let's jump to Google Analytics. So this is the Action Skills .co website. Now, Google Analytics is super complex, so I'm going to just give you, again, don't be scared of data. So my main thing to get across is at least look at it and understand a little bit about it, like some of the more important things, even if you're not having to learn the whole advanced stuff. Okay, so just looking over here. So this is for the last 7 days. I've had 23 sessions in 7 days. So that's really low traffic. But in saying that, though, I'm also doing quite low marketing. I'm down 18%. So I did a lot more marketing there last week than I did this week. Bounce rate. Bounce rate's really interesting stat, because what a bounce rate is, it's like someone's come to a page and then they haven't gone to any other page on the website. So that could be really bad. It could be someone's gone to the website, they're going, what is this? This isn't for me, and they've gone away. Or they could have gone to the page and gone, this is for me, and signed up, and then gone. So I can look at this stat. It's more interesting when I look at what is the bounce rate and the numbers to my signups. So if I'm correlating like the conversion of how many people come to my website and sign up, I might say my web page is so great that they've signed up on the first page and then bounced. Or it could be a case of like the page is crap and they've just bounced. So that's a really interesting stat, your bounce rate. Generally, if you've got an information-based website or you've got a different type of journey, you're trying to lower that bounce rate because you want them to visit a few pages before they bounce off. Now, session duration, 2 minutes and 55 seconds. That's massive. Generally, you're looking at 30 seconds. So I've started embedding my videos. So I could look at that a bit more, and maybe they've just loaded the page and started watching the video, which would then skew my stats quite a lot, because then they're on there for an hour watching the video. Or it could be that it's really well written copy and people are reading it. Now that latter doesn't make sense because I don't have any long form content on my website. So that's an interesting stat that we can look at in a little bit more detail. Okay, so here we're going. This is where do we acquire users? Now this is really, really gold for any digital marketer, because like, where are we getting our traffic from? We want more traffic, so where's it coming from? So referral is different dates. So on these days, I'm getting most of my referrals, organic search, direct, other. So that means even though I'm not optimizing for search, I'm still getting ranked in my search engines. So this is really good news for me. And when I go talk about search engines tomorrow, I'll talk about how to structure your websites for search engines, even though you may not be optimizing. So let's look at this data a little bit more in detail. I'm going to click on the acquisition tab. Okay, so I can see a little bit more referral. Now, referral means it's a link from another website. Organic search, 26%. So this is exciting to me. I'm really excited because before I've even started my search optimization, I'm already ranking. That's really exciting. Now, direct means someone's typed in the URL. That's really high, and that looks odd to me because if I had run a poster campaign, okay, that makes sense because someone's seen my web address on a poster and they've just typed it in. So what may be happening is people are seeing it and then typing it in at a later date. Not quite sure. But I want to look at this referral tab. I want to see where they're coming from. Action skills ASIN. All right, so this is coming from the ASIN website. Okay, so this is making a bit more sense because Glenn Todd and Devise are two of my websites and they're both optimized for Google. So what may be happening is that people are searching for something, they're going to my other websites, and then I'm promoting my webinar, which is then converting. So that's also an interesting, in one of the earlier webinars, we were looking at all the different assets that we have. So I'm, in this case, using my assets to bring traffic to this specific site. And then I can actually see what numbers is coming through. All right, if I just go acquisition again, come over it. I want to see it for a month. I want to see its data for a month. Now I haven't been live for a month. We've still got the same data. So this is a really there's not much data in this actual analytics, but at least I can at least give you an introduction and have a look at what's happening. Behavior. This is really key because when we're looking at conversions, it's like, where are they going? Let's have a look. Okay, so they're going to /. This / means they're coming to my website. So that's great. They're going to my homepage. So that's interesting because all of my marketing has been to / webinars. And if I look at this, then that just hasn't worked. So that would probably mean that my marketing is not working very well. They're coming to / resources. That's interesting. And / events. This actually, I'm actually on the wrong website. Okay, this makes me a bit more sense. All right, so this is actionskills.org, not .co. So this is explaining, this will explain it a bit more. All right, so in context, I'm running two websites. So .org is the first website. It's been running for a few years. So I've been promoting my free resources. I've been giving out free resources for many years. So this would explain the traffic coming here. I've run events in the past, and then so we're actually looking to see what pages they're looking at. Okay, behavior flow. So this is showing when people go from one page to the next page to the next page. So this is really useful for your pathways to see what's working and what's not. So I think it's really important for you, even if you're not that interested in statistics, to start looking at how people are using the website. Because in here, if you've spent all this time and effort on a certain page or a campaign or part of your website and people aren't getting to it, then you need to work out how to fix that conversion to get them there. Site content, here's the pages they're coming to, a lot more stats, etc., etc. Now conversions, I've used the word conversions a lot. This is more the advanced part of Google. So I'm not going to go through that here, but the basic gist is that you can actually set your goals, what your pathways are. You can put trackers on your website and you can actually track to see how people are converted. And audience, I'm going to have a quick look at audience, because we're always interested in who and what. Here we go, user demographics. Here's what I'm looking for. Okay, so here we go, we're looking at the age, 18 to 24, 35 to 34. More people are coming to my website. Okay, I don't actually have this enabled. So in that case, I'll enable that in my own time, and they'll give me more details. This used to be enabled, so I'm assuming that Google switched it off due to privacy laws. But as you can see here, there's some really advanced tracking and stuff that you can look at. So this is just a quick snapshot of analytics, but it will give you a good idea of what pages are working, where people are going to. If you're having a look at also your Facebook data, you can say the same thing. So you're starting to see like where you're putting your efforts and your time, what's working and what's not. Phew. I'm going to jump back to the track sheet. All right, so yeah, we talked about traffic volume pages. Okay, A/B testing. So A/B testing is an important part of marketing, and I'll make a point that modern marketers will now say they don't know what they're doing. So in the old days, they'll go, we're a professional marketer, we know what we're doing, so we're going to write the best copy and we're going to make the best ad and it's going to be awesome. Now what they say is that I don't know. I'm going to create a framework where I test it. I'm going to test it, get the data back, I'm going to refine it, and they're going to produce the best ad possible. So it's a paradigm shift, and it's based on data. And so people with the smaller egos are going to be more effective at this because they're purely looking at data and systems rather than, I'm a great marketer. So, so if you put a Facebook ad or if you put a Google ad, they'll ask you to put 3 versions of those ads. So in that case, you might go, okay, I'm going to try this picture, I'm going to try that picture and that picture. Or you might try change this copy or that copy. Then what Facebook and Google will both do is they'll display your ad. So if you've got 3 versions, they'll display to 33% of your audience this ad, 33% of audience to that ad, 33 to that ad. And then very quickly they'll work out what works, and then they'll just start feeding that one ad. Now they may work out that different sort of demographics are reacting differently to the different ads, so then they'll feed them like that. So in that context, if you're A/B testing, don't do little bits at a time. Don't change the photo and the headline because you can't test. So just change the photo. So if you're running a big campaign, what I'd recommend is you do a small campaign first and you start testing things. So you do one campaign that's testing 3 different images, another small campaign that's testing the 3 different headlines, another campaign that's and then once you've got the perfect ad, then you can run it. So the holy grail of digital marketers in a commercial context is where they've worked out the cost per acquisition is less than the profit they make from paying for the marketing, and that ad performs. So they just keep paying for that ad forever, well, for years at a time. And so it just is done and it automates. So it's really important to test. So A/B testing also on a website. So Divi, the software I use to build WordPress websites, has an A/B tester built in. There's various plugins, and the various website software now has A/B testing. So if you're testing landing pages, you can go, right, well, I'm going to test to 50% of my audience this option and that option. Now, if you don't have any fancy technology, you might just go, okay, well, I'm going to run it for 3 days on this page. I'm going to change it, run it for 3 days on this one, adjust the stats to roughly the equal traffic spin to each one and work out which one worked the best. So it's really important that you're trying to test. Okay, heat mapping. Heat mapping is a technology. There's various plugins that you can plug in where it overlays your website. So therefore you can overlays your website, so then you can actually see where people are clicking and looking and those sort of things. They can be useful. They generally drain resources on your website and make your website a little bit slower to download. So if you are using any sort of heat mapping technology, just run it for a bit and just see how you're going. Now, if you're a small organization, you just won't have the traffic to be able to run any of this testing. You just won't have enough of a small sample group to be able to test your A/B testing, but you can still do it. So for example, when we were at the lab, we understood that Twitter is a medium where you could just shoot out as many posts as you want, as you can, whereas Facebook works better if you're having 1 post per day. So what we'd do is we'd make some memes on the various thing that we're doing. In this one case, we wanted people to call up the local water minister. And so we'd make multiple memes and we'll shoot them out to Twitter, and then we'd see which one's got the most shares and the most comments. Then that successful meme would then go into as a Facebook post and be pushed out to Facebook. So in that context, some weird stuff happens. So for example, we had this one where we'd run out of ideas. We had 2 ideas, so we just did this really cheesy one. I had a picture of a pipeline. I said, "I'll get on the line, ring Peru," and it was just this real dumb, cheesy meme. It got heaps of traffic, and we're like, "Oh, that's weird, cool." So then that went into the Facebook, and away it went. So even if you get low traffic or you're just a small org, you can be creative with your A/B testing. And the final point about data improvement is talking a little bit about offline data measurement. So just say you're spending money on a radio ad, or if you're getting in a newspaper or posters or whatever. There's 2 ways of tracking that. One, on a commercial context, is a coupon code. So your poster is 10% off, put this code in, and then you can see how many people bought a product with that code that came from the poster. Another way of doing that is just setting up a custom page. So for example, many years ago, there was this thing called Green Pages. It was like Yellow Pages, but for sustainable organizations. And I did a year's advertising with them. And I, like an ad in the Green Pages, and I put / my website / Green Pages was the URL. And that way I could use my Google Analytics to see how much traffic came to that page. And then the next year they rang me up and said, "Look, do you want to advertise?" I looked up the stats and went, no one came to my webpage. Now, it could have been my ad was bad and didn't convert, but I also reckon the medium just was irrelevant. And so I said, no, I'm not advertising. So that way you can start tracking what is coming offline, that sort of thing. Do we have any questions? So I'm just looking up, is it worthwhile having a website, community group, Facebook page, and community Facebook group? It's all about your strategy. I'm not going to answer that with a yes or a no. I'll answer that with you. You need to look at your target audience, what you're trying to achieve, what's the best platforms to engage with the resources you have. Okay, so thank you for coming to the webinar. On the email that I sent out, I've got in the footer various ways that you can support me. So I got 2 donations today, so that makes me dance. I get really excited, but it's not all about the money. So if you if you just share these webinars, that's really exciting for me. Or if you put a review on our Facebook page or anything like that. So that's really appreciative to support us. And that allows me to keep giving away free content for not-for-profits and to run events and that sort of stuff.
Calling all marketers. Discover a treasure trove of free guides and software to supercharge your digital marketing prowess. Click the links in the video description below to unlock expert resources for increasing conversions, maximizing ROI, and more. Click now and revolutionize your marketing strategy.